Drink with James, episode 108. Welcome to my sweaty conference room. Here's the thing, New York offices, air conditioning is like notoriously wacky. And ours is so loud that when we film these things, we have to turn the AC off. So like as the show progresses, I start sweating more and more, and like for some reason this room, I think it's the lights, is like incredibly hot. So if you start to see the beads of sweat, it's not that I am nervous, it is just that it is incredibly hot in here. So first I want to talk about some conversations I've been having around episode 106. I answered a question about diversity. I did so in a way that didn't articulate my point effectively, and left some people shaking their heads wondering what I was talking about. I've since had a bunch of conversations with influencers about that. Diversity in the influencer space is something that I'm personally passionate about. It's something that I would like to see changed. I have appreciated the feedback that I've gotten from the community. I appreciated that people pushed back and said, hey, the way you're talking about this doesn't really ring true. I believe that in the pursuit of truth, you sometimes need people to point you in the right way. And if, you know, the phrasing, the things I said, or the point I was trying to make offended anyone from a few episodes ago, I am sorry. These shows are off the cuff, and I think the point I was trying to make was not articulated. I take full responsibility for that. And again, I've appreciated the influencers that have reached out. I've appreciated the people that I've spoken to. And diversity is something that we're going to keep talking about because it's important, you know. And while it is a controversial issue that people are incredibly passionate about, as they should be, I think that my business and my position as the leader of that business has a responsibility to be a harbinger of change in a space that needs change. So we will keep talking about it. We'll keep discussing it. And again, I appreciate the feedback. And anytime I say anything that y'all think is off base or don't agree with, you can always email me, james@4.co. You can always DM me. I am always here for a conversation about why I am wrong. It is one that my employees have with me daily, I guarantee you. So please don't ever hesitate to reach out if you feel like something I said doesn't feel true or fair or right, because I'm just a dude with a mustache and a drink, you know, and I don't always get it right. So appreciate that, and appreciate any of the feedback you have moving forward. Question number 1 was around travel and said, why don't I think that lesser known cities or countries are featured more on Instagram? Great question. This is coming from my Positano rant, which I do not apologize for in any way. Why don't I think lesser known cities are featured more on Instagram? There is a Disneyfication of Instagram. It has starting to become this place where everything looks the same. And I think that people's desire to fit in and do what other people are doing is pushing people to do the same things as other people because that's what worked. Another thing is that, like, look, we're here because we say that Instagram is a place that can change the way people see the world and can influence their decisions. And so part of it is just that, like, you guys are good at your jobs, and a lot of you go to Positano, and then everybody else wants to go to Positano because they see the photos and they're like, well, that looks dope. And like, I was thinking about where to go on vacation, and I've seen all these photos and everyone's going to Positano. It feels like now I should go to Positano, and then they go to Positano. So part of it is people aren't super creative and they're not interested in stepping outside of their sphere of comfort. The other thing is that, like, Instagram works. And the places that get talked about, Tulum, Positano, Paris. Paris, I'll step outside because Paris is Paris. What are you going to do? Positano and Tulum are my two recent examples, and maybe Morocco are places that have been covered so much on Instagram over the last few years that I think it is driving a lot of tourism there, which is just to say that this stuff works. Other thing, anytime I'm feeling stale, like, here's the thing. There are interesting things happening on Instagram every day. There are crazy artists, there are people that are doing incredible things, and anytime my feed is feeling stale and I've seen one too many Positano pictures, I just start digging for new follows. I just start looking for people that are doing interesting, different things. I will try and pull something interesting into the feed if it starts to feel dull. And I encourage you all to do that because, again, you should be looking at this platform for inspiration just like your followers are, and you should be changing your feeds up. And if you feel like you're seeing the same stuff over and over again, unfollow, 10% of the people that you follow and follow 10% more. Change your feed up, change your feed, change your life. Question number 2, will Instagram try and capture some of this money? Facebook loves money. I do think that they will do something to try and make more money off of influencers. Caveat being, like, end of the day, Facebook just wants to make sure that you're opening the app every day. Influencers do a great job of driving interest in the app. Without influencers, Instagram kind of becomes Facebook. It's just like your high school friends and your family members posting, like, shitty updates of their dogs. It becomes less interesting. What y'all are creating on the platform and the way that you're using it is driving a lot of eyeballs and value. And so Instagram is not going to do anything to try and jeopardize that. And a lot of the value that influencers are driving isn't from the dollars that they're earning. But Facebook has always, done things to try and make more money. They're incredible at making money. I don't see them getting directly involved in negotiating with and paying influencers. If you think about it, they would all of a sudden have, they would kind of have to treat them as general contractors. And so you would have hundreds of thousands of 1099 employees that you're working with. It would be an absolute nightmare. And just think, like, if Ford is paying an influencer and they have to do it through Facebook's platform, and then Ford says, well, the influencer didn't do exactly what they said, and so I paid that money, but I want it back. And now Instagram needs to go, or Facebook needs to go to the influencer and say, hey, you didn't do these deliverables, so we need that money back. We're going to take it back, this and that. Like, it is a lot of work for, let's say they take 10% of the payments of $1 billion. That's what, $100 million? Yeah. $100 million to Facebook is nothing. It's a rounding error. I saw that they got fined £500,000 for the Cambridge Analytica stuff. That was the most that the Irish courts or something could fine them. And someone said that £500,000, which is like $650,000, was something like 3.5 minutes of revenue for them. So $100 million just isn't going to move the needle enough to probably justify the amount of people that they would have to add and processes and technology that they'd have to add to get that money. So we will see, though. So the other part of the question was, how should an influencer deal with a brand liability? Like, a brand does something shitty and you work with them. And how should a brand deal with a situation where an influencer does something shitty? In both scenarios, I think that if you believe what the brand did was shitty, you should distance yourself. You saw, like, PewDiePie, the big YouTuber, said some like bigoted, racist things on his YouTube channel. A lot of his advertisers publicly walked away and said, hey, we don't support this, we're out. Let's say you were working with H&M and, when the H&M t-shirt debacle happened months ago, a lot of predominant celebrities that they were working with walked away and said, hey, I'm walking out of my contract with them. I'm done. I can't support this. I think as brands start to feel more like people, and as people start to feel more like brands, you have to understand that there are consequences to the actions. And I think that if a brand does something and you really feel like that doesn't align with your code of ethics or with what you believe in, then you should walk away from that brand. And if your relationship is close enough that your identity is tied up with them and you could be negatively impacted, I would act quickly in distancing yourself. My caveat from an influencer side would be, I would reach out to the brand and see if they have an explanation and try and have a dialogue first. I think in the case of something like the H&M situation with the t-shirt, you just walk away. What explanation could they possibly give? If it is something less cut and dry from that, you might want to reach out and say, hey, I'm not feeling comfortable with this relationship right now because I don't agree with what you did over here. Could you explain it? I'm an environmentalist and I saw that you were polluting, and so it's tough for me to continue to work with you. What's your explanation? Why should I continue to work with you? What are you doing to fix this? If they're smart and they realize the problem and they're working to fix it, and you feel like it is a problem that can be solved, then you could be part of the solution and say, hey everyone, like, I found out that X brand was doing this thing I didn't agree with. I reached out to them. Here's their plan of action that they told me they're doing with deadlines. I'm holding them accountable to that. Because I'm passionate about environmentalism, I feel like I can be more helpful continuing to work with them and push them and hold them accountable than I can if I just walk away from the relationship, which really isn't going to hurt the brand anyway. So I understand it could be hard for some of you to understand why I would continue working with a brand that harms the environment since I'm such an environmentalist. But I am talking to them. They are trying to make changes. I will keep you up to date with what is happening. And if they don't meet those deadlines and they don't do the things they said they were going to do, I'm going to walk away from the relationship and I'll let you know. I think there are times when that approach can be more powerful than just throwing up your hands, walking away and saying, fuck them. But case by case, there's some things you can't take back and there's some things that are inexcusable. So in those cases, you just walk away. If that happened, I would send the person you're working with at the brand a note and say, chances are the person you're working with was not involved in the decision that has made you walk away. And so I would send them a note and say, I've liked working with you. I think y'all are great. I hope you understand that, what you have done goes against my moral code in a way that I can't work with you. Let me know if you need me to, I'm going to delete the post from my feed. Let me know if you need me to return the money or whatever it is. Leave them in a good spot because that person you worked with is going to leave that brand and they're going to go somewhere else, and you want to make sure that you did the classy thing and let them know and explained your actions before you blasted them online. So. Okay, question number 3 is about reach percentages. How do we calculate reach percentages? What are we talking about when I talked about reach? So last week we talked a little bit about reach percentages, and I said that that is something increasingly that we're looking at as a marker for success, and eventually, hopefully, it will be the thing that determines how much you get paid. We look at that as a average over the month. So not the reach percentage on a single photo or on 5 photos, but your average over the entirety of a month. If you don't post much, we might wait to 15 or 20 photos to pull that together. I don't think 4 or 5 photos is enough to come up with a reach percentage. I also know I can anticipate the next question of like, should I delete photos that don't get a lot of reach so it doesn't hurt my percentage? No, I don't think you should. If it is natural that sometimes you'll have photos that don't do as well, that don't get as much engagement, and thus the reach is going to be lower. In the same way that I wouldn't tell you to delete those photos because of engagement, I wouldn't delete them because of reach. It is hard mathematically to influence an average over the course of 30 days with 1 or 2 bad scores. So if your average reach is 28% and you have a photo that gets 9% and you have 30 photos, that 9% isn't going to do anything to your overall average, really. Not enough to justify getting rid of it. So I wouldn't worry about that. I wouldn't obsess too much over these numbers. You want to be in a place where you feel like you understand if you're doing a good job or if you need to do better. And other than that, yes, we should always be improving. Yes, should we be looking at this data, but should you freak out over 31% versus 33%? No, I wouldn't worry about it too much in the grand scheme of things. It doesn't really matter. The way we are looking at it right now is more of, do you meet a benchmark of what we feel like is a authentic, real, engaged account? If you don't reach that, I would worry about it, and I would work hard to fix that. If you're in or around that or above it, just keep doing you. Just keep focused on creating beautiful stuff, telling interesting stories, helping your followers, being a good person, and sending me whiskey.
Not going to Positano.
Not going to Positano. Exactly. Going to new and interesting places. Focus on that. Show me something new. I think that's it. I've been talking all day, and I'm going to stop now. So cheers, as always. Thank you. Goodbye.